we're fascinated by animals that behave in ways we would never expect. Millions of us watch clips of different species that normally wouldn't come together, showing what looks like friendship, affection, and even love towards each other.
Kate took one look at her. Thank you. I'll take over now.
Oh,
you know.
stop it. That just melts your heart, doesn't it?
It did.
But what lies at the heart of these behaviors? Can science explain why these unusual partnerships take place? I'm Liz Bonin, and I'm going on a worldwide journey of discovery to find out why animals of different species make friends with each other. Why a cat would adopt ducklings.
I was blown away by what I was seeing. I just couldn't believe it.
If an orangutan could really keep a dog as a pet. Or if two animals of different species could even fall in love. Oh, he's so handsome. I'm on a mission to find the world's cutest and weirdest animal friends. This jaguar and Jack Russell are inseparable. When staff tried to move the jaguar to a bigger enclosure of its own as it grew up, they were having none of it. Both cried and whined incessantly until they were finally reunited. And, you know, this does beg the question, how on earth does this work? Cats and dogs don't normally get along. But here in this wildlife park in South Africa, Bullet the Jack Russell is best mates with a predatory jaguar named Jag, who could easily have him for dinner. But instead, Bullet and Jag spend as much time as they can together in this enclosure. They eat and sleep together and are always playing together. So what's going on? For a long time, we've thought that most animals of different species have evolved to stick to their own kind and to generally not get along. But in recent years, the internet has been changing all that. Videos getting hits in their millions are showing different species interacting in ways that scientists didn't think were possible. So how can we explain these relationships? And what can they teach us about how the animal kingdom really works? To find some answers, I'm going to start by meeting a variety of animal odd couples that seem to be the best of friends. And I'm beginning my weird and wonderful journey in Atlanta, Georgia, in the southeast of America, because I've heard about an incredible example of animal friendship between the most unlikely of species. They live here in this refuge with over 1,000 other injured, orphaned, and abandoned animals. So this is Baloo, an American black bear. He's 12 years old, and he's been at this wildlife sanctuary here in Atlanta ever since he was a little cub. And all through his life, even into adulthood, he's been keeping company with a couple of animals, well, you just wouldn't expect. And there's one of them now. Is that your friend? I have never seen a fully grown bear and tiger in the same enclosure before. Shere Khan is a Bengal tiger who's also around 12 years old. Asian black bears and tigers do share the same territory in the Far East, but when they meet, one of them ends up badly injured or killed. And so to see these two guys, they're around 12 years old, showing so much affection for each other is pretty amazing. The third member of this unlikely friendship is a lion called Leo.
The bear's the boss. And then Leo the lion falls in second, and then Shere Khan's a little, you know, he's a little wild child. When they're sleeping in the clubhouse, all three of them, they pile in together. They just know each other, and they love each other.
Jama Hedgecoth is the founder of this sanctuary, and she's looked after the three of them since they were just a couple of months old. Kept illegally as pets, they were confiscated by the authorities and brought to her wildlife sanctuary.
They had been in a dark basement, and they were all kept together. And then the tiger and the lion's noses were busted up, and they're scarred to this day.
What absolutely fascinates me is the fact that these are grown predators in their own right,
Yes.
who are displaying so much affection for each other.
Right, yes.
What do you think is going on here?
Well, they're truly a family. They've never been separated. We tried twice when they first came in, and they wouldn't eat. They cried all day. So after about 8 or 9 hours, I said, oh, well, they're just babies. Let's put them back together.
Would you describe these three as friends?
Very close friends. I wished I had a friend as close as they are.
The need to find a friend, no matter who they are, is clearly a very strong instinct. You can see it in animals that have been brought together by captivity, particularly if they're very young. Just like this baby chimpanzee who's found a companion in a puma cub. And there's one factor that always seems to be involved in their everyday lives: play. So why is that? Is play a crucial part of what creates these cross-species bonds? This might help to explain an example of play between two very different species that became an internet sensation with over 11 million hits. In Canada, polar bears, one of the most fearsome predators on Earth, have been witnessed playing together with huskies in the most surprisingly affectionate way. The huskies are tethered at their home base in Manitoba, and these wild polar bears are waiting for the winter ice to return to this stretch of coastline. The huskies should, by all accounts, be an easy snack, but the polar bears are clearly not hungry, which frees them up to play. But that doesn't really explain why they would choose to do this. So why does play seem so vitally important, even when it's with a different species?
The unusual thing about play is that the behaviours that are incorporated into play are all flight and fight behaviours. You know, they're sort of all excitement. They're things that really hype you up. Okay. And so one theory is that play, you're activating, you're doing this exciting activity that's just a little bit dangerous, you know, just a little bit, you know, you're pretending there's a predator after you, or you're being overcome by this other animal who's fighting you, and so there's this little fusion of excitement and stress.
It's these little peaks of mild stress in safe circumstances that Linda believes help prepare animals for the challenges of life. And playing with a different species adds to the thrill of the unknown.
When a young animal is stressed, it alters its sensitivity to stress. So next time it suffers a trauma, it doesn't get as stressed. Yeah. It doesn't respond so badly. It recovers quicker. It's not traumatized as much.
Especially if it's a different species that normally you'd run from, but you're playing with, you might get an added extra bit of stress that you then get sort of habituated to, and that helps you in future life.
So Linda believes that these polar bears and huskies are getting more of a thrill from playing together than they might do playing with their own species. And this potentially helps their bodies to cope with more dangerous situations. Stress in small doses is clearly beneficial. But too much can be dangerous. I've traveled across South Africa to a secret location to meet an animal that's so reliant on its friends, it will die without them. This is a cross-species friendship that's not only saving lives, it's helping to save an entire species. Rhinos in Africa are in crisis. They're being slaughtered at an alarming rate for their horns.
because they're prized by the Asian medicine trade, despite the fact that they have absolutely no medicinal value whatsoever. Now, in South Africa, last year alone, 688 rhino were killed. And that's tragic enough in itself, but it gets worse because it's led to an unprecedented number of orphaned, traumatized calves like these two. Now, if they're very, very lucky, they get to come to a place like this.
Heavily guarded, it's a relative safe haven where rhinos are brought to help reduce the risk of poaching. But they've also discovered that cross-species relationships can help save the rhino orphans they receive. This is all because young rhinos are surprisingly fragile.
The closest rhino relationship is the one between a calf and its mother. It's totally dependent on her for up to 2 years. So an orphan calf needs a lot of care. Not only that, but they just don't do well if left alone.
Dr. Jana Pretorius is a specialist wildlife vet who looks after the little ones.
Jana, how old are these calves?
Ella is about 15 months, and
15
then
months.
Benjamin is about 7 months.
And are they both orphaned from poaching?
Yes, they are, unfortunately.
So you pair them together, and this is everything they need to have a good chance of survival and then ultimately for re-release into the wild, right?
Yes. Preferably when they are orphaned, they need to have a companion.
Yeah.
Because the stress of being alone will kill them.
Large doses of the stress hormone cortisol can be a serious problem for rhinos.
The gland that produces cortisol produces so much cortisol it can't produce anymore, so the body can't cope with stress anymore. Together with the stomach ulcers, then they normally do end up dying.
So if the rhino calf can't be paired with another orphan calf, then is it best for a human to take care of it, or is that a bad idea? Like, what can you do?
It is, in a way, a bad idea because humans can't stay with them all the time. And the moment, for example, a human has to go away or is sick and you have to use, or somebody else needs to look after him, just that stress of somebody else being there is already quite bad. Whereas with animals, it's slightly different. You can always have the animal with them, or maybe more than one.
When you talk about putting them with other animals, what animals do you put them with and why?
The best would be something like a sheep or a foal, because they also graze, and you want the rhinos to learn to graze from a young age. If they're with humans and, for example, dogs, they end up not wanting to graze. And we have seen that, where they actually will eat dog food but won't eat grass.
So you put them with a sheep, and how close does this bond become? And what is it about that bond that makes these animals de-stress and give them a better chance of survival?
It's purely the companionship of not being alone. When they're alone, they're uncertain, they can't see well. They're very insecure animals, the calves. You wouldn't think of a rhino as being timid, but no. Especially the white rhino, they're very timid.
I find rhino bums amazing. They're just so fat and gorgeous with a little dinky tail. They're amazing, aren't they?
With the careful introduction of a close companion, precious rhino lives are being saved. But could such a deep bond ever develop between different species without our encouragement? I've travelled to the west coast of Canada, just outside the town of Courtenay on Vancouver Island, because I've heard about the most endearing relationship between two different species that came about purely of their own choice. Many companionships between different species develop because of captivity. Circumstances essentially bringing animals together who normally wouldn't keep each other company. But here on this tiny little corner of Vancouver Island, two animals have been hanging out together for years, and they're both free to come and go as they please. Pippin is a wild black-tailed deer who's formed an incredibly close bond with Kate, the Great Dane that lives in this house. Pippin leads a wild existence, coming and going as she pleases. So I've been told the only way she might approach the house while I'm around is if I hide inside. Five years ago, Kate's owner, Isabel Springett, discovered Pippin in the woods when she was just a tiny newborn fawn. She left her there hoping her mother would come back and find her, but it didn't quite work out that way.
The next day, I started hearing the crying, and that went on for 3 days. So that was it. I thought, this is crazy. I'm taking her in. And the only reason I put her on the dog's bed is because it was the only spot to put her. Yeah. And Kate took one look at her, and that was it. It was, thank you, I'll take over now.
Oh, stop it. That just melts your heart, doesn't it?
It did, yeah.
This is a film Isabel took of those early days together.
There is this maternal behavior going on with Kate?
Definitely. Yeah, she never had puppies, but when it comes to little things, she's maternal.
But did Kate ever suckle?
No, she had
Pippin?
nothing to suckle with,
Okay.
but she would try.
Really?
Oh boy, did she
So
try.
Pippin tried to suckle?
Yeah, Kate would stand there and she'd be bunting and bunting and bunting. And Kate was so patient. She never told her off.
Really?
No. And we'd be getting the bottle ready and she would be bunting and sucking on nothing, you know. Poor Kate, I used to feel sorry
and poor
for
Kate
her.
was like, it's okay, I'm just going to take it.
She'd just hump her back and stand there.
And so, at what point did Pippin begin to sort of get back to the wilds, would you say?
2 weeks old. Yeah.
2 weeks old?
2 weeks old, yeah. At 2 weeks, she insisted on sleeping in the woods on her own at night. And we thought, well, if something eats her, that's just the way it's going to go. We can't interfere. No.
Would Kate ever follow her into the woods at
yeah.
night?
Yeah, Kate would follow her. Sometimes she'd watch her go, like, oh. She's gone.
But then, she never left Kate, did she? I mean, she didn't disappear forever.
No, she'd come back every day. Every day.
Every single day?
Every single day.
So how long did this maternal behavior carry on?
Probably till Pip was about 6 months old. And then it sort of turned into a friendship, playtime, buddy thing. The older Pip got, the more they would play like friends. It's nothing like I've ever seen before. It's not like a dog and a dog playing. It wasn't like a deer and a deer playing. Kate toned down the aggression a little bit with the play. It wasn't, you know, she would be more aggressive playing with another dog, but with Pippin, she was more careful. And Pippin seemed to be a little more rough than I've seen a deer be. So it was two different species compromising. They would smack into each other and run and leap and do their neck twirls and lick and, it was really funny to watch.
How old are these two now? How long have they known each other?
5 years, yeah. And I think Pip's had 7 fawns now.
Pippin spends the majority of her time with the wild herd, but she returns to the area surrounding the house each year to give birth to her fawns.
You know, the beginning of their relationship was a maternal, nurturing sort of
And
relationship.
now it's like old friends.
And now it's like old friends.
Yeah.
What makes you think that?
The way they greet each other, they don't greet each other like, hey, you know, they greet each other like you would a really good old friend that you see quite often, and you just, how you doing? And just hang out. You don't even have to talk.
Do they play still, or how do they hang
They don't
out?
play. They're too mature for that now. Yeah. Pip's a mom. She doesn't play. But no, all they do now is they'll walk up, maybe do a little nuzzle. Kate will lick. Pip loves to lick Kate. And they just hang for a few minutes, and then they'll flop down in the shade together and just hang.
And how long will Pippin stay with Kate at any one time?
She can be here for 3 or 4 hours sometimes. Just she'll come right into here and sleep on one of the dog beds with her sometimes. Yeah.
At this stage, they were missing for about 6 hours, so Ronan thought there was no hope at all.
After searching round the farm, they eventually found the ducklings. But unfortunately, the cat, Della, had got there first.
I ended up catching the cat with a duck in her mouth at this stage, and it really looked, Ronan was like, she's going to kill the duck.
I was thinking, oh no,
Yeah.
we're only after getting them back and now she's going to eat them right in front of us.
Then Emma noticed something unusual.
I was like, Ronan, she's not actually forcefully holding this duck.
That's when the amazing thing happened. We put the cat down, put the ducklings down, and then all of a sudden the 3 little ducklings waddled straight underneath the cat. The cat lay down on her side, put her paw over one of the ducklings and was kind of nursing the duckling in towards us. So we were, I mean, just absolutely blown away with this. Because normally cats would eat little small birds, but it was awesome. It was just incredible to see it.
She was very content at this stage. She was purring and she was really loving towards the ducklings. When I was petting her down, I noticed that she actually had given birth to 3 kittens only within an hour or so beforehand.
It was a very lucky coincidence for the ducklings that the cat found them just after giving birth herself. For a narrow window of a couple of hours, mothering hormones will have been coursing through her body, causing her to love and nurture any small, warm, furry creature she found next to her.
I have no doubt whatsoever that the cat was thinking dinner if she had seen them either maybe a couple of hours before or a couple of hours after. I've no doubt that she would have put the napkin around her neck, knife and fork, salt and pepper, the whole lot.
But it was when they came to move the unusual family into a safer spot that they got an even greater surprise.
As soon as we lifted up the cat, that's when we were totally amazed because the ducklings were actually latched on to the cat's nipple, so...
They were hanging from her. Yeah, it was very, very bizarre.
When we seen them breastfeeding, we just thought, oh my God,
Yeah.
there's something very, very strange happening here, and something very strange, and also something very unique, you know?
Duck mums don't produce milk, and ducklings are born ready to find their own food and water from their surroundings. So to see them suckling a cat is extraordinary. But there are other examples that suggest the mothering instinct is so strong this can even happen in the wild. A few years ago, the most surprising example of misplaced mothering took place in Kenya. The story of this lioness and a newborn oryx, surely just minutes from being this lion's next meal. But to the complete amazement of the rangers who were monitoring the situation, the lioness didn't try to eat it. Instead, she cared for it as if it were her own young. Just like the cat with her ducklings, a strong instinct to protect and nurture was overriding the predatory instinct to kill it. Many theories were put forward as to why she was behaving in this way, and the consensus was that she was a young lioness who'd gone through some kind of traumatic experience involving being separated from her pride, and as a result, her mental state had led her to want to nurture this calf in some way.
Hey, over here. Hello there.
These little fellas are called marmosets. They're one of the world's smallest monkeys. I mean, this is it. They get this big when they're fully grown. Is it even conceivable to think that one of these could be adopted by a completely different species out in the wild? They are so absurdly cute. I mean, what animal wouldn't want to adopt them?
And one group of scientists discovered exactly that. It occurred in a forest reserve in the heart of Brazil, between a baby marmoset and a group of capuchin monkeys. I meet up with Professor Patricia Izar, one of the scientists who witnessed this rare event, the only long-term cross-species mothering that's ever been documented in the wild.
When the marmosets, they encounter the capuchins, usually they go away. They are afraid of the capuchins.
Yeah.
They hunt for small mammals, small rodents, and marsupials, and even small primates.
Yeah. So they've been known to eat a little marmoset or two.
Yeah.
Okay, which makes this entire episode, which you were privy to, even more unusual.
Yes. Suddenly, one day, the female appeared with a very, very tiny marmoset, probably days old. She was carrying the marmoset as if she was carrying her own baby.
This in itself was extremely unusual, but what happened next almost certainly saved the marmoset's life. The capuchin allowed the baby marmoset to breastfeed.
She was here with her mouth and the capuchin's nipple.
Yeah.
We couldn't tell for sure that she was suckling, but she was in that position several times a day as a baby capuchin, as she would do with a marmoset mother, and she survived.
What did you think when you first saw that?
That, for us, was really, really amazing.
That's unheard of. It's completely unique, this case, isn't
Completely
it?
unique, yes, yes.
Over the coming months, the marmoset became very much part of the group. But there were some differences in the way she was treated.
How does it manage to integrate into a group that's essentially very different in its behavior and its ecology, everything?
Perfectly.
Did it work well? Yeah.
Yes. In fact, the dominant male, sometimes we saw that he was treating her more or less like we treat our pets.
So is this possible? Can animals, other than humans, keep pets? Patricia has some footage that sheds more light on the relationship.
She just looks like one of the pebbles they used to crack the nuts. She's that small. I'm surprised they didn't squash her by accident. I mean, she's so tiny. Cracking a nut. Is she going to go in for some?
Yes.
And is he going to allow her?
Yes, see the proximity.
He's fine with her. Why do you think he's so relaxed?
Because I think she's so tiny, tiny, tiny. He doesn't see her as a competition.
He's watched her take some of the nuts.
And that's okay.
It's adorable to watch it in action, isn't it? And he let her, you know. He's not stupid. He wouldn't let her do it if he didn't want her to. So is she like his little toy? She's so cute, she just can't help but just let her get away with murder. Compared to the other capuchins, you know.
A wild animal keeping another species as a pet is unheard of and would be a hugely significant discovery.
Great tool use as well. By the by, these are very clever monkeys, there's no question.
Tool use was once considered a uniquely human activity. So could pet keeping be another behavior that we share with other animals? We'll never know in this case, as sadly the marmoset disappeared after 14 months. Maybe a predator got her, or perhaps she joined another group of marmosets. But it does make me wonder if there are any other examples of animals that might keep pets, and if this could be another reason for different species to hang out with each other. Pet keeping can be defined as looking after an animal of another species with a level of care and affection, primarily for reasons of pleasure. And a very significant part of that care is, of course, feeding them.
Whose is this? What's that? Do you want that?
Yes.
You want it. You want another one?
Do you want to give it to Roscoe?
No. Does he want it?
Oh
Look,
my gosh, look at that.
He wants it. You know he wants it. Yeah, you knew. See, he wanted to do it that way, though.
Today, Hanneman hangs out with Roscoe whenever he can, and they seem to have a real level of affection for each other. They even go swimming together. Hanneman is only one of 2 apes in the whole world that can swim like this. Now, both Hanneman and Roscoe are obviously trained, so I wonder how much that affects what I'm seeing. To get a scientific perspective on their relationship, I've brought along Professor Hal Herzog, an animal behaviorist who's been investigating pet keeping in humans and other animals for many years.
Amazing.
See, eyes wide open, couple of bubbles out of the mouth, happily swimming in the pool. I've never seen that, have you?
Never.
Orangutans
Never.
in a swimming pool. Hal, what do you make of this relationship? You've watched the orangutan and the dog. What do you make
Well,
of it?
there's a couple of relationships going on. The relationship with the orangutan and the dog is absolutely stunning, and it's very clear that they have a deep relationship. The thing that impressed me the most was food sharing. Was the orangutan being perfectly happy taking orangutan chow, you know, not dog food.
It was monkey chow.
It was monkey chow for sure, and giving it to Roscoe. It was quite stunning.
So what do you think that means, that a great ape would share food with a completely different species? What do you think is going on in its head?
I think to some extent it means that the great ape is recognizing the existence of the dog as in a way, a like-minded creature. It's treating it like a like-minded creature, just the way we would a dog or a cat in our lives.
Do you think we can call this pet keeping?
I would.
Roscoe doesn't
Roscoe
think so.
You
say yes.
I said Roscoe
See,
said
I'm
yes.
far too cynical in my old age. What do you think?
I think the relationship that those guys have would fall into my definition of pet keeping.
Really?
Yes.
Because for you to say that is a big deal.
It is a big deal. But the thing that's interesting for me is that these relationships don't seem to exist outside human agency. And maybe the biggest part of the human agency is having a full stomach.
Hal believes that in the wild, animals are too busy finding food and avoiding predators to have the time to devote to another animal in the way we might look after a pet.
I argue that humans are the only animals that keep pets.
Yes.
Although you do see the rudiments of the motivation in other animals. And to me, what the orangutan here is doing is exemplifying that the rudiments of the urge to keep pets are right here in South Carolina. This is the perfect storm here. You've got a human being, Doc, who understands animals at a very, very deep level. You've got this ideal situation where there's plenty of food. And what this shows is that great apes, and probably a lot of other animals, are capable of deeply loving members of another species.
The heroes featured in this video may have 4 legs and may not be able to talk, but they are braver than many humans. Today, we will show you animals acting like real heroes. A baby impala slipped and fell into a man-made body of water, and luckily, a herd of elephants happened to be drinking from the water hole at the same time. The elephants ended up rescuing the impala. This dog tried to revive the fish by pouring water on them. These guys decided to test what a horse would do for its human friend, and this is what happened.
Incredible trust between a man and a crocodile is recorded on camera.
Lo vi que estaba muy mal, lo montamos en la lancha.
Original owner surprises hyena on its 4-year-old birthday. Jake the hyena was born in captivity in a zoo, so he never had the chance to be wild in the African savanna. He started his life in Animal Kingdom in New Jersey, but Brian Hahn, a civilian, decided to buy Jake from the zoo when he was just a little 6-week-old cub. And thank God Brian did so, because the zoo burned down 3 times in a row. And if Jake would have still been there, he probably would have died a horrific death. But when Jake became an adult, Brian had to give him up on account of his size and strength. And that's when he was accepted by the Octagon Wildlife Sanctuary. 4 long years passed until they could finally be reunited on Jake's 4th birthday when Brian paid him a surprise visit. Look how happy they both are. Jake did not forget his human father, that's for sure. This is an extremely rare and surprising behavior for a hyena. They're not usually very loving with our species. But love is bigger and stronger for Brian and Jake the hyena. Everyone warned him not to meet the gorilla he raised. Gorillas are amazing creatures. They're strong, intelligent, and massively powerful. I mean, they are our distant cousins after all. But a wild male gorilla can be very dangerous to a human on account of their temperament and strength. That's what everyone told Damien Aspinall, a millionaire entrepreneur and conservationist, when he decided to go pay a visit to his old friend, Quibi. He met Quibi, an African gorilla, when he was just an infant, and Damien took care of him until he was ready to be released into the jungle again in the country of Gabon. But 5 years later, when Damien went to meet Quibi again, everyone was terrified about the potential bad outcome of the reunion, especially because Quibi had viciously attacked the last 2 people he had encountered. But Damien had high hopes, and he was certain that his friend would recognize him and come to him.
I'm touching right now, I'm gonna get out of here.
After hours of searching for him in the dense jungle, a massive gorilla answered the call, and what do you know? It was Quibi. They started by touching each other's heads, and then the cuddles came. Everyone was left in tears. What a sweet reunion. They both looked into each other's eyes and played for a while until it was time to go. Lion reunites with his human mother. Meet Jupiter the lion. His story is a very sad one, so honest disclaimer, you might shed a tear or two. Jupiter was rescued when he was very young from a circus where he was being severely abused in Colombia. He was saved by a woman named Anna Julia, who nursed him back to health with a very sweet maternal instinct. But as Jupiter was a fully grown adult lion and Anna Julia didn't have the proper documentation for keeping an exotic animal, in 2019 he was taken from her arms and ended up being transported to a Colombian zoo. But years later, she caught word that her lion friend wasn't doing well at all. He had lost half his body weight and couldn't move anymore because he was so weak from not eating properly. That's when the authorities took matters into their own hands. The Attorney General opened an animal cruelty inquiry, and Jupiter was transported to another zoo in Cali where he would be closer to his human mother. And at their first time seeing each other again after so much time apart, they recognized each other instantly. Jupiter hadn't moved for days prior. He was severely depressed. But at the first sight of Anna Julia, he stood up and started licking her face. That is why Jupiter has been dubbed the Kissing Lion. Reunion after 18 years of separation. It isn't news that we use animals for a lot of different kinds of experiments. And whether you agree or not with this method, nobody can deny it isn't easy on the animals that are enduring hundreds of experiments and are bound to live in a cage inside a lab for their entire lives, never seeing the sunlight or even touching grass.
I guess if you remember me, you remember what?
In this case, these 2 gorgeous chimpanzees were rescued from a hepatitis research lab because they were no longer needed due to the discovery of the vaccine. Linda Kobner, an animal behaviorist, saved the 2 chimps named Doll and Swing and took them to a sanctuary where they could live peacefully for the rest of their lives in the outdoors. She spent every single day with them for 4 years, but eventually Linda had to go. She was a very busy woman and other animals around the world needed her help, so she sadly had to say goodbye to her 8 friends and go save more animals. 2 long decades passed until they could all be reunited, but the chimps, being as smart and sweet as they are, recognized her instantly even after 20 years of not having seen her. They were both now adult chimps, but they can never forget the face of the one who gave them a second chance in life. Jinjing the penguin. Jinjing is a South American Magellanic penguin, and he's a very special little creature. When Jinjing was just a little nestling, he went into the water when it was full of oil, and when a bird gets oil in its feathers, it's most likely they will die. But luckily for Jinjing, a 73-year-old part-time fisherman named Joao Pereira de Souza was in the area that day, and when he saw the little penguin chick, he instantly went to its rescue. This happened in a little island village just outside of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, where Joao actually lives. He picked up Jinjing and cleaned the oil off his feathers. And not only that, but he fed him mashed fish for days until the bird would feel strong enough again to return to the wild. And so he did. And today, Jinjing is a fully grown adult penguin, but he never forgot the kindness that fisherman showed him, and the reason why he's still alive. And so every year, when the South American Magellanic penguins migrate to their breeding grounds, Jinjing travels 5,000 miles to go pay a visit to the man that saved his life. They spend the day together goofing around on the beach, and when the sun starts to set, Jinjing leaves to be reunited with his kind. Elephant reunites with old trainer. It is very well known that elephants have an exceptional memory, and Christy the Asian elephant is no exception to that rule. When she was living at a zoo in Scotland where Peter Adamson worked in the early 70s and 80s, the two formed a very sweet friendship. He took care of her, fed her, and even talked to her sometimes. He was also her trainer, and they spent a lot of time together. But that zoo eventually closed, and Christy was moved to another zoo in Germany. 35 years later, Peter was in Germany visiting friends of his, and he found out that not only was Christy still alive, but that she was very nearby at the zoo. This was very unusual, given that she was now 52 years old, and usually elephants don't live that long. So Peter didn't hesitate for a second, and he contacted the zoo to see if a reunion could be organized. And they did. They welcomed Christy's old friend with open arms, and so did she. She recognized him instantly and started smelling him with her massive trunk. It was a very emotional reunion for both of them. Such a sweet moment.
This horse is so happy to see its owner, it can't stop hugging and kissing her. And this is an incredible reunion between a female hippo and a vet who saved her back when she was only a week old. And yet, she recognized her all these years later. When a bear considers you a friend instead of its prey.
Hi, Cookie.
This little penguin befriended a zookeeper, and this is how they greet each other. This pet monkey is very happy to see its owner after she's been away for a week. A small shark has been friends with this diver since its birth for over 10 years. Look at one of their encounters. It acts just like a cat. And here's a reunion between a scuba diver and his friend, an Asian sheepshead wrasse. Back in the day, he treated the fish after an injury, and they've been friends for over 25 years. Just take a look at how a pack of wolves greets their adoptive mother after not seeing her for 2 months. This woman has been taking care of this lioness since it was 4 months old, visiting the animal nearly every day. Look how happy this baby Capuchin monkey is to see its grandma. And this beautiful little bird was found in the grass when it was a chick. This woman raised it without putting the bird in a cage, and now the bird comes to visit her every day. And this elephant lives in a nature park for elephants with disabilities and elephants that suffered animal cruelty. Here it is getting a friend. The animal is falling asleep to her lullaby. And this is an adorable reunion with the favorite dog after a year apart. And this deaf and blind dog recognized its friend by scent, even after a year of not seeing him due to the pandemic. And here's another happy reunion between a dog and its owner. Imagine the grief this dog must have gone through when its adoptive cow mom was sold and taken away. Seeing the suffering of the dog, the owner brought the cow back, and here's their heartwarming reunion when a dog cried happy tears. And this lioness greets her savior like this every morning. In 2012, he saved her from a farmer's holding pen and raised her as his own. For several days, Sydney police have been looking for a missing rat named Lucy, and they were finally able to return it to its owner, a homeless man. And this is how a baby deer greets the girl who has been taking care of it. It must have gotten very attached to her.
You don't want to suck on my ear.
I'm sure you've heard that dolphins can be very friendly, but this encounter with divers went beyond all expectations. A touching encounter between a girl and a donkey. I had no idea that donkeys could purr.
Hi, buddy. I miss you. Hey, buddy.
Just look how cute these toucan cuddles are. Elephants accepted a human into their herd because he took care of them. But then he had to go away for 14 months. And look at the way they greet him when he returns. That adorable moment when a wild gray seal comes close to the diver and hugged him underwater. And these elephants were reunited after 20 years apart. That's what missing each other looks like. Have you ever seen anything more adorable? This chicken stopped the car of its owner and is rushing to greet her. Who might have thought that chickens are so emotional?
What mama baby doing?
A driver became friends with a small fish that recognized her and swam with her on each of her dives. This is what a hug from a tiger looks like. At least it's friendly. This horse is called Dr. Peo, and it has a gift. It can calm and soothe terminally ill people. Dr. Peo chooses which door to enter and instinctively knows which patient needs the most support. This is how wolves greet someone they love. Several people argued in court that this was their dog.
Oh, that's baby boy. Hey, boy.
Hey, baby boy. Hey, man.
So the judge asked for the dog to be released, and it immediately ran to its owner. If only all court cases ended this well.
Yes, that's him. That's baby boy. Oh.
One of the reasons to get a Maine Coon as a pet, look at the way it greets its owner after a work trip. A month ago, this person found a hungry and dehydrated baby deer next to its mother, killed in a road accident. And check out how gratefully it looks at its savior. And this is how a small Capuchin monkey greets its owner who was gone for a week. Just listen to the pure joy. These wolves are greeting a man after a month apart just like domestic dogs, even wagging their tails.
Awesome.
400-pound lion is very happy to see its friend. A powerful reunion in every sense. And this is an incredible encounter with a whale. The animal swam up to the people to say hello and didn't mind being stroked. This kangaroo was so happy to see a magazine's editor-in-chief who came to the sanctuary.
Elephants playing soccer in Thailand. Rugby with a wild beluga whale.
That's crazy, yeah. Just careful, he's gonna maybe try and get his clean eye on.
Tane wipes his face like a human and even dips the cloth in water to wash his face like we would. Amazing.
Huge whale shark swam to a dive site for divers to relieve its terrible pain. Its body had been bound with a rope for a long time, but now it's finally free.
Just 30 seconds to remove it for years.
After 6 years with a tire around its neck, this crocodile finally swam out to people to ask for help. Or at least to put an end to its suffering, and the humans exceeded all of its expectations. A calf wandered out onto the ice and couldn't be saved in any usual way, so the rescuers decided to try a very risky approach, blowing it off with a helicopter. For 3 whole days, this poor young elephant had to stand to keep from drowning. People couldn't pull it from above nor push it from below. Miraculously, they managed to find an excavator to help the poor animal get out. This python was so hungry that it was willing to eat anything, but no one was expecting to find a 1-meter-long towel. Fortunately, veterinarians were able to help the reptile in time. It's unclear how long this mother bear had been guarding a dumpster in the middle of a deserted road, but one thing is for sure, without these brave people, her 3 offspring never would have made it out of there alive. An unfortunate fox couldn't find its way out of an ice-cold canal for several days. Having lost all hope, it could only hope that humans would pass by, and they came to the rescue. Some goats got tangled up in ropes while on a walk, and one of them began to suffocate. She had already stopped breathing by the time her owner noticed, but he didn't give up and literally breathed life back into her. This wolf was injured and couldn't get out of an icy river. The animal was already stiff by the time rescuers got to it, so they urgently had to resuscitate it like they would a human. And they did the impossible. No one would have heard the cries of this baby camel in the middle of the desert. By some miracle, this man showed up and was able to return the youngling to its mother.